I want to have a quick discussion on how, outside of just relationships, forming better relationships, how can communication bring happiness? What are practical strategies we can do to better, bring the effect of happiness? What comes to mind for me is one, using more positive words. Because if I feel like I'm saying more positive things, then I am creating a more positive relationship and environment for the conversation. Two, I am put yourself in a more positive environment, such as instead of having a conversation in the office in the cubicle, have the conversation outside. Have it on a park bench. You're going to have bigger perspective of things. I'm curious what comes to mind for you, Gretchen. How can we use communication, little tips and strategies to better increase or boost our happiness, even if it's just 1%?
Well, one thing that I'm trying to work on is not casually cursing. I think there's been a lot of there's been a real increase in just cursing
Yeah.
in all kinds of circumstances where it would have been like extremely inappropriate and rare. And I think it just adds an element of ugliness and ratcheting up an argument in a way that is often not helpful. And I think I can't change the way other people communicate, but I can change the way that I can communicate. And so unless I'm like, slammed a door on my big toe or something like that, I really just try, not like I cursed like a sailor anyway, but I just want to use more gentle words because I just, like you say, like the words that we use influence our minds. Another thing to keep in mind, and this is just a really fun one, is the fluency heuristic, which is that if you say something in a very memorable way, like it rhymes or something like that, it's stickier in the brain and people, and it's more convincing to people. So that's like, if it bleeds, it leads. Like that's the fluency heuristic. And so that's just kind of a funny thing to keep in mind. Like if you're trying to come up with something that really that's really persuasive to people, which is strangely like if it's just very sticky in the mind, it feels more correct. And it's interesting that you say about putting yourself in a positive environment. One really interesting thing to do this is if you're having a difficult conversation, like, and of course you would want to do this in the right environment, like with like your sweetheart or something. But if you have to have a difficult conversation, well, first of all, have it while walking. That's always really helpful, is if you're walking, you're releasing that nervous energy, you're side to side instead of face to face. And a lot of times with people in a difficult conversation, that just makes it easier. There's obviously a beginning, middle, and an end to it. Like if you're going on a hike or you're walking around the reservoir or something. And so that kind of gives people this knowledge like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to go on forever if it's a really painful conversation. But another thing that I really like is to hold someone's hand. It's really hard to yell at somebody if you're holding their hand. And so if you have to have a difficult conversation, like look for a way to, like, now, obviously you're not going to do this with your coworker, but there are times where you can just, if you're physically connected with somebody. In fact, somebody who was a couples therapist said that what she does when she has couples who are like just yelling at each other, she makes them lie down on the ground, like with their running, like with their sides touching, right? So from shoulder to leg, they're touching. And then she's like, you just cannot yell like that. You cannot physically have a shouting match while you're lying on the floor, shoulder to. And I just thought that partly it's just so silly. I mean, one thing I would say about, and this is advanced, like this is if you are good, but if you are skillful, use humor. Humor is so effective to lighten the mood, to make a point gently, to praise people in a way that doesn't embarrass them, in a way to like point out your own flaws. Like one of the things about me is like my sister calls me a happiness bully because if I think there's a way for you to get happier, I can get quite insistent. But this is actually a really useful thing for me because I say to everybody, I am a happiness bully. And I'll say like, I have an idea for you. And in my happiness bully way, I just cannot resist. Like, do you want some advice? Cause like, I'm thinking of something that might work for you, and some people are like, actually, no thanks. And I'm like, cool, that's fine. But it gives me a way to like point out this aspect of my nature, which is kind of like part of who I am in a way that's lighthearted and in a way that allows people to say like, hey, back off, but in a lighthearted way. So it's like neither one of us has to feel uncomfortable. I get to offer, like, I want to get in there and muck around in your life. And you're saying, you know what, like, no, thank you. And that's okay. But this being able to bring in humor, and it's also more memorable. It's funny because like in terms of like what we consider to be serious literature, serious movies, it's always things that are like very dark and sad. But actually, like, we're very attracted to what's funny. It energizes us. It brings people together. I mean, you know, this is a trial attorney, like anything that people can laugh at, it just like, it just changes the mood. And if you're like in a tough moment with people, if you can go to humor, to levity, you don't actually have to be funny. Nobody's asking you to be like a stand-up, but just introducing a moment of levity can do so much to just make it better. Like this is one thing, because I am kind of like an uptight, this may sound surprising, but like an uptight, rigid person. And my husband and I, we just got a new puppy. What were we thinking? We completely forgot how much work it is to have a new puppy. And people were saying to me like, oh, is it bringing you and your husband together? And I'm like, no, actually we're bickering all the time. And finally my husband was like, you're being so critical of what I'm doing with Taffy. Like, back up. And which was true, it was 100% deserved, but now I can just kind of laugh at it and still say like, you know, you're right. You know, I can make fun of myself and still say to him like, okay, but you know, we need to run her around before bedtime. So like, you're not doing that. You're just petting her on your lap, you know, whatever. So he gives us away. So those are some suggestions I would say about
I think those are awesome. I really love the humor. You know, anytime that you can communicate just a glimmer of humor in conversation, the other person almost picks up subconsciously of like, I kind of like this person.
Yes.
You know, they're realizing it's not as serious as it needs to be. I came across these videos, Gretchen, that I forgot. I'm sure there's some name for them, but there's sayings that you can use at the end of any situation that kind of add some levity to the situation. Like, for example, just adding, and that's jazz, to the end of it. Or, and I've always said that, like these little bitty things that you can add no matter how serious it is.
I add as one does a lot, you know.
As one does. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You're yelling at your husband about the puppy, as one does.
As one does. Yes. Those kind of things always make me laugh. Mine is, well, maybe so. Then again, maybe not. Like that's that kind of thing. You don't have to be, like I said, you don't have to be a comedian, but to be able to add just a little bit of, you know, wouldn't you like to know? Or I think you know, like just a little bit that gives a little bit of a humor to it is a wonderful way of adding a little bit more happiness to the conversation. And I really like your point about the cursing, which I think is very self-aware of you. I am definitely a fan of less cursing because I compare it to over seasoning your food. Like if you always are just full of the seasoning, you really can't taste what you're eating. You lose track of the message and you really sound more emotional, especially for leaders.
Yes.
You sound more emotionally unstable, so to speak, versus somebody who's very choosing. I'm not saying don't ever do it, even though you can all have your own beliefs. And again, it's cultural, right? In New York, where you are, that's a little bit more of the vibe, you know. So I understand it's also dependent on context. But I think those are wonderful suggestions. I very much like, hold the hand. Now, I'm not going to be where it's like, hey, bro, come here, just let me.
No,
let me hold your hand, man.
This is very context specific.
Yes, I agree.
Or like with a child, like if you put your hand on their back and said, like, you know, I know it's been tough, but you know, the multiplication tables are really boring, but they have to be done. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody has a default love language, so to speak. But those are all wonderful takeaways that I think can instantly improve happiness to anybody's next conversation that they're going to have. So today, I would encourage you, if you can, use some smiles, use some positive language, and find a way to add some humor into the conversation. Try out one of these little isms. I am curious, before we end today, Gretchen, what are some of your favorites out of the Secrets of Adulthood? I need everybody to go get it. It's by Gretchen Rubin, Secrets of Adulthood. A wonderful little book. I promise you it's going to You're going to get happy reading this thing. I'm very curious why you wanted to write this book and some of your favorites in it.
Well, I wanted to write the book for a couple different reasons. My daughters were going out into the world, and I wanted to like write down the secrets of adulthood that I had learned, with time and experience, usually the hard way, to give to them to try to spare them some of the suffering and experience that I went through. And I realized like I wanted to remind them of these secrets of adulthood, but also myself, I need to be reminded that something that can be done at any time is often done in no time, as much as they did. And also just creatively, I was really pushing myself to write in this very brief format because creatively and intellectually to really distill a big idea into a line or two is very challenging, and I thought that was really interesting. So some of my favorites are working is one of the most dangerous forms of procrastination. That's one that I have to remind myself of all the time.
That's so good. Yeah.
Another is we care for many people we don't particularly care for, which I think is yeah.
That's a good one, Gretchen. I love that one. Mm-hmm. That one's a good one. Okay. Mm-hmm. Keep going.
Another one is love is unconditional and love is demanding. Love accepts you just as you are, and love expects the best from you. This is like a paradox that took me a long time to understand. Another one is, so in the back, so most of the secrets of adulthood are kind of, I would say I'm hoping that they're kind of big insights into human nature. So like the bird, the bee, and the bat all fly, but they use different wings, right? But then in the back, there are these, what I call simple secrets of adulthood. And these are more like hacks. And I have to say that as I was writing my secrets of adulthood, I just can't resist a hack. So I just couldn't resist making this kind of other list of more practical secrets of adulthood. And when I submitted the manuscript, I really thought that my editor would say, Gretchen, no, we're going to cut these out. They don't belong. But she's like, oh, I think they're fun. Like they're interesting too. They're valuable too. Let's put them in. So they're in there too. And that's things like, if you don't know what to do with yourself, go outside or go to sleep.
That's one of my ones I have underlined twice. I'm if
good.
you feel like you're in a place where I don't know what to do with myself, just go see some grass.
Right.
Just
or
go outside, go touch a tree. Or go to sleep or go touch a tree. Yeah. Like you need to go pick up a stick. Find something else that's gonna nature it. If you enjoyed that clip and want to see the rest of the conversation, you can click right here. Or if you want to see the latest episode of the Jefferson Fisher podcast, click right here and I'll meet you there.